Hi, today we'll be creating a voice agent with LiveKit that is an open source and self-hostable BAPI alternative, and there will be no coding required as we'll be using a dashboard that I've built myself for easy agent creation. Then we're going to be setting up the agent tools with an N8N MCP server. Then we're going to get a phone number and connecting it to the agent so that the agent can call with the phone number. And finally, we're going to do a full showcase of the automatic outbound calling and phone number warm-up system that I've built. Actually, the majority of the video is going to be taken by this full showcase because it's a really complete and quite complex outbound calling system. Okay, so let's start by creating the voice agent. So the dashboard that I was talking about, that it's for LiveKit for easy agent creation and hosting, it's inside of my school community. The link is down below at the description, and you can go here in Classroom, Dashboard for LiveKit agent creation and hosting, and you'll be able to download the file from here. You have the installation guide here. Okay, you can host it in Linux, but also in Windows, okay, and probably in Mac. And you do not really need this software. You can code the agent if you want, but this is going to make our lives really easier. Great. So once you have downloaded and installed the dashboard, something like this, it's going to appear. Obviously, the agents are not going to be these ones. So first you'll have to click here in New Agent. In my case, I have already created the agent to prepare this video. Okay, so I'm just going to click Edit to show you everything. So first, set the name. I recommend at this very moment to use OpenAI provider and OpenAI real-time API, but you can also switch to Google Live API, or if you want to choose a separate STT, LLM, and TTS model, you can also do this, okay, and select all the providers that are available, okay. I have left the first message empty because actually the first message is defined in the system prompt, okay, but you can also add it to make sure that the agent is saying exactly what you want, or you can add it in the session prompt, okay? Internally, basically, the dashboard, what it does, it's getting this first message field and inserting it into the session prompt, okay? So it's basically the same as sending it here or here, okay? You have the system prompt available in the post about this video in my school community, but I'm going to be showing you everything, okay? So that you can just make screenshots, share it with your LLM of choice, and the LLM is going to be giving you the whole prompt. Okay, so first, the personality. We are defining the personality: energetic, persuasive, and highly professional. Then the environment, just giving the agent context about what they are doing. You are making an outbound call to a potential B2B client, and so on, okay? Then we are defining the tone: upbeat, professional, and confident. Occasionally to sound natural, use so, well, and so on, okay? These filler words and other things that can be considered to make the agent sound more natural and more human, okay? And then we are defining the different goals. So as you can see, this is the first goal, secure discovery call, with different phases, examples, actions to be taken, and so on, and how success is measured. Then we have goal 2, objection handling. So these are some of the objections that the agent could be encountering with and how the agent should be responding, okay? So yeah, defining some examples. Then we have the guardrails that are basically instructions to make the agent work as we want it to work, okay? So for example, use an excuse to use a tool. Before calling scheduling tools, you must first verbally signal the pass to the user, and so on, okay? And then defining the different tools that it has access to, okay? And then defining the tools that it has access to, okay? So these are the tools that we're going to be creating inside of the N8N MCP server. And yeah, basically it tells the agent how and when should be using the different tools. Great. And then finally, there is the internal configuration, that it's basically the different variables that are being used in the prompt, and also that will be used in the calling of the tools. Okay, so some tools, for example, require the agent to provide a time zone. So it's going to be providing the time zone that you set here. Okay, then in the session prompt, I just set it to always talk in English because in some cases, OpenAI real-time API will just start talking in other languages. I don't really know why, but yeah, it's just to make sure that only talks in English, or you can set it to wherever language you want. Of course, if you change it to French, for example, make sure to change the system prompt to French. Okay, great. So once we have done this, click Save and hop onto your N8N account or your N8N instance. Create a new workflow called Outbound Caller MCP or whatever you want. Create an MCP server trigger. I guess that you already know how to create one, but just search MCP and this node it's going to appear. Okay, great. So now double click production URL and click on the production URL. Make sure that it is in active mode, okay? Go to edit the outbound sales agent that you have created and set the N8NMCP server URL variable to the URL that you have just copied, okay? In my case, I'm going to cancel the changes. And now we're going to be reviewing all the different tools. Okay, so first, starting with the most simple one, it's just to allow the agent to check the current date and time. Okay, the description is to get current date and time, include current date and time active. The output field name is going to be current date, and then the time zone that you have to add with adding an option should be defined automatically by the model. Okay, using the value of the variable that we have defined inside of the system prompt that I was talking about. Okay, so now we're going to see the book discovery call. You should let the agent to define the start. This is basically the date time at which the event is going to start. Okay, so for example, October 17th at 9 a.m. Okay, and then the end, it's the date time in which the event is going to end. So 2 hours later, for example. And then you can set the description of the different parameters just to make sure that the agent actually knows what it should be writing in, okay, in these start and end parameters. And then add a description just by adding it from the add field drop down here and write client contact, name colon from AI client name, phone from AI client phone. Okay, so that the AI is going to be filling these two parameters here with information that it collects from the call or from your CRM and so on. Okay, now we'll see this check availability tool. It's going to be a separate workflow, as you will see. So first, it's going to take the starting ad, ending ad, and time zone parameters. Okay. And then if you have downloaded this template from the School community, because all of this is available in the School community, the outbound system is going to be also available there. You're going to have to set up the configuration edit me node. So first the starting hour, at which hours you start taking discovery calls and so on. Then the ending hour, that it's basically when you no longer take more discovery calls that day. Okay, the meeting duration, approximately how much time it's going to take for you to do the discovery calls. The booking cadence, the buffer before minutes. So this is a buffer before the call, so 15 minutes before the call for a buffer, and exactly the same context for buffer after minutes. Okay, and this new feature that I have added to this tool, because I have already used this tool in other videos, is that I have just added today that you can have different employees / units like tables or whatever allocated to different calls or different appointments. Okay, so just right here inside of the array, the different employee names and all this. So for example, instead of table 12 and so on, I was testing this for a restaurant actually. You can set it to Richard, David, and whatever, okay? The different SDRs or account representatives that you have in your business, or if you are just you inside of the business, just set it to one item, okay? Actually, in this case, I have completely forgot about. Go back to the outbound caller MCP if you are setting all this up following the tutorial. Go to the book discovery call. And then in description, you should be adding the allocated to, and then we're going to be setting the from AI. I completely forgot about to set this up before. So yeah, employee or assigned employee. Okay. And actually we could set it to assign to. So thanks to this, the agent is going to be allocating or assigning an employee to the call. And actually we should be adding quickly a code tool that is just going to return the list of employees that we have in our business. I'm sorry for this setup in live, but yeah, it's just going to be quick. So get employees, call this tool to know all the employees that can be attending a call, or actually just to get all the employees. And now we're just going to set the return, open the curly braces. If you want to add different employees, just write the names inside of the same string and just separate the names with a comma. Okay. And also make sure to change the system prompt to add the tool. You can just add it like this. So yeah, we're going to be continuing with the check availability tool. Just make sure to set all the existing employees here. In my case, I'm going to add David because I already added to the get employees tool. Okay. And then this check availability tool, it's just going to split out using the existing employees units, and it's going to loop over all the employees to get their calendar. Okay. To know if a specific employee is already booked for a specific time slot. And yeah, we're just going to be getting all the available slots of the different employees, and we're going to be merging all of them. As you can see, just going to take all of this, then remove the duplicates, so merging all the free slots and then sorting it from early to late. Okay, you do not have to touch anything from here. Okay, so yeah, now we're going to be seeing the get event details tool. So as you can see, this tool is much simpler compared to the check availability tool. And as you can see, there is also the configuration node. It is pretty much the same as the check availability configuration node. Okay, but here we do not need the last field where we were indicating the employee and so on. Okay, so it's going to take the appointments, check if there are any scheduled events whatsoever. If there are, it's just going to keep the events that are from the contact, filtering by the phone number, removing all the non-important information and just keeping the relevant information, that it's the start time of the call, the end time of the call, and then the times. Okay, and in case there are no events scheduled, it's just going to set it to no events exists. Okay, with an error. And then it's going to return the information aggregated into one item. And lastly, we're going to take a look at the write call logs. This is just the agent taking notes on how the call is going. Okay, inside of the Google Sheets that you have to create the human phone number, timestamp, agent phone number, topic of the call, inbound, outbound call, and summary of call columns. Okay, these are all columns. And actually this sheet is going to be available inside of the post that I'll make for this video inside of the school community. But as you can see, it's extremely simple to set up. Great, so we have already completed these two items. We can cross them out. And now we're going to hop onto setting up the phone number and connecting it to the agent. You can use Twilio if you want, but in this video, I'm showing you how to get a phone number from Telnix and how to set up a zip trunk to connect the agent to the LiveKit dashboard and so on. And actually I chose Telnix because it's a little more cheap compared to Twilio, and also because I couldn't find any available phone number in Twilio for the country I'm in. Yeah, in Telnix I could find it. So that's why. Okay, so create an account. I'm going to log in. Great. So once you have created the account, to buy a phone number, you should go to real-time communications, numbers. So first select the country. that you want to purchase the phone number from. Then select the type. It's going to be either local or toll-free. Toll-free basically means that whenever a person calls the phone number that you are purchasing, it's not going to be billed for that call. Okay, in this case, since we are purchasing a phone number for outbound calling, wouldn't make sense to buy a toll-free, but since the other option is local, possibly you'll still want to get the toll-free. Okay, but yeah, in local basically allows you to select a city or a region or even a state/province. Okay, so it depends on the reach that you want to have with your outbound calls. Okay, great. So finish filling all the different fields. It's going to ask you for your ID card just to make sure that you're not trying to scam people with calls and so on. Or if you are purchasing this phone number as a business, besides asking you for your personal ID card, it's also going to be asking you information about the foundation of your business and so on. Okay, so just make sure to provide that, and it's going to probably take 1 to 3 days for them to verify you and to provide the phone number. Okay, the phone number, I have not mentioned this, but if you get a local phone number, it's going to be around $1 a month. So it's extremely cheap. Okay, and they give you around $5 of available credit by default. As you can see, I have used quite a lot of it, but I can tell you that it takes quite a lot of time to get from $5 to 0, as I have used it a lot. So yeah, it's quite price competitive, I would say. Then once you get the phone number, you'll go to voice, SIP trunking, create a new SIP connection. In my case, as I am still in the trial level, I only have available one SIP trunk creation. Okay, so first in the configuration tab, it's going to appear something like a FQDN connection. You'll also have to set a connection name for the trunk, and I can't remember now if you have to set the webhook in that moment, or you have to create the SIP trunk and then you can set the webhook URL here. But yeah, don't worry about this webhook URL. We are going to be taking a look at it when we are reviewing the full automated outbound system. Great, so now in authentication and routing, just make sure to create an FQDN that it's pointing at the LiveKit cloud domain that they provide you to add the FQDN, SIP trunk, and so on, or the domain or subdomain that you have set up for the self-hosted LiveKit server. I created a video explaining you how to set up the LiveKit server. You can go watch it. It's not that hard. It's quite simple, I would say. And here I walk you through every step. And it's going to be much cheaper compared to the LiveKit cloud option. Okay, so now going back to the FQDN, set the port to 5060 and the DNS record type to A. Here you can set the SIP subdomain, doesn't really matter whatever you set, and select the primary FQDN to the one that you have just created. And now in outbound calls, select credentials, and I'm not going to show you the credentials because it's the credentials that it's going to be using for the connection between the Telnix SIP trunk and the LiveKit SIP trunk, okay? But you have to set a username and a password, okay? So make sure that those are secure and that are not easy to guess. Then going to the inbound tab. I know that this video is not about inbound, but yeah, you'll already have it set up, okay? It's really quick. Just select in the destination number format, the plus E.164, and then in the origination number format, E.164, okay? Select the SIP region that it's more accurate to you. Select TCP as a transport protocol, and then in codecs, just select these two. Deselect all the others. In Outbound, just select the country and it's going to be pretty much it, okay? And in numbers, you'll have to link the phone number that you have just purchased, okay? Great, so now going back to the dashboard for LiveKit, we'll have to create a new SIP trunk. In my case, I don't really need that, but just click new Outbound trunk and you'll be given the option to set a name, the address that in this case, if you have chosen Telnix, you'll have to write exactly sip.telnix.com, okay? And actually, first of all, you'll have to add the phone number, okay? I have completely forgot about it. Just add the phone number, select the country, okay? Then go to zip trunk, select the phone number that you want the zip trunk to be using. Remember, the address has to be sip.telnix.com, and here write the auth username and the auth password that you have set up in the Telnix SIP trunk configuration, okay? Great, now we'll have to go to dispatch rules, create a new dispatch rule, write whatever name you want for the dispatch rule, okay? Here you can room, if you want, room dash, and it's just going to be using the prefix, okay? Now select the agent that it's going to be connecting to the tool, okay? In this case, it's going to be Outbound Sales Agent, and select the Outbound Reel or whatever Outbound trunk that you have created, okay? And create the dispatch rule. I have already created a dispatch rule, so I do not need to create a new one. And yeah, we have finished with the getting a phone number and connecting it to the agent. Of course, you can use the LiveKit SIP trunk via CLI and also coding it. But as you can see, it's extremely easy to create with the dashboard that I've created. Yeah, just remember that it's inside of the school community. I don't want to sound pushy, but I think that it's extremely convenient to have it both self-hosted, so you have full control, saving costs and so on, and also gives you the ease of creation of agents that platforms like Bapi and other platforms give you, okay? And they are much more expensive. Yeah, I'm just crossing this task out, and now we're going to see the full automatic outbound calling and phone number warm-up system. I'm going to try to go as quick as possible because it's quite lengthy, but yeah, so just going to start now. Great, so this outbound system, it's composed by a campaign manager that is the one that is going to start the calling campaign. Then we'll have the phone number temperature management, just to make sure that we are not going from 0 to 100% with a phone number directly. We want to warm up the phone number slowly, okay? So each day we increase, for example, the number of calls by 10. The first day could be 10 calls, the second day 20 calls, and so on. Then we have the call status manager that it's going to be modifying certain aspects and that it's going to be starting the next call for a specific phone number. You'll see what I mean exactly. And then we have the single caller, okay, that it's basically going to make the outbound call, okay? As you can see here, it's going to be using an API with the LiveKit dashboard link. So we can just integrate this functionality of making an outbound call with the LiveKit dashboard that I've built into an errand. Okay, great. So we're going to be starting with the campaign manager first. So it's going to start every day at 9 a.m. as you can see here. Then you have to set up this configure me node. So set the time zone here and the maximum leads per day that you want to be talking. This system has two different constraints that could be constraining the amount of leads that are called in a single day. So first, you can force a specific maximum of leads that are going to be called per day. You can enforce it here. But the other option is that it's going to compute all the possible calls that can be done in a single day, taking into account the amount of phone numbers that you have available for the agent to use, and also what are the maximum calls that each phone number can make. So yeah, just make sure if you want a specific maximum amount of leads to be called, set it here, okay? But if you want to maximize the amount of calls that the agent is going to make, I would just recommend to set this parameter a really big number, because in this case, if we set it up to this extremely large number, the constraint that it's going to be constraining the amount of phone calls is going to be the maximum amount of phone calls that we can do based on the phone number and so on that I have already explained. Okay, great. So the next step is just calling the phone number temperature management, that it's going to be this workflow. And by the way, I haven't mentioned that, but you need to set the Google Sheets up exactly like this for the workflow to work. Okay, so you'll need first a sheet that is called leads, with this column exactly positioned. The order doesn't really matter, but all the fields should be present, okay? And then you have to have another sheet called available phone numbers. And yeah, you have to have exactly the same columns for the workflow to work, okay? And of course, you should be adding the phone number that you have purchased, or the different phone numbers that you have purchased that you want the agent to be able to use to cold call people. You'll need to add the phone number itself, and then these 34 or +1 or whatever, it's going to be the prefix of the country of the phone number. Okay, so instead of adding the plus sign, you just remove it and we have just the number of the prefix. Okay, then you should set the phone calls today to 0, current max calls days per day to 0, status to active, temperature warning, and is in use false. Okay, and also you can set it up to 100 and so on, but this is a parameter that we are going to be setting inside of the phone temperature management. Okay, so first we have the when executed by another workflow trigger, it's going to accept all data. Then you have to configure these different fields. So basically what it means is that for every day that it's going to be calling, we are specifying here how many extra calls it's going to be able to do in that day. Okay, so for example, imagine that it's the first day, it's going to go from 0 calls to 10 calls that day. Or if it's the second day, it's going to go from 10 calls to 20 calls. Okay, of course you can change it up to 20 and it's going to go from 0 to 20 to from 20 to 40 and so on. Okay, but I would recommend you to keep it to 10. Okay, then the max calls per day when warm. What are the maximum amount of calls that it's going to be able to do when the phone number is already warm? Okay, so just to make sure that we are not labeled as spam, you should be keeping at 110, 90, and so on. Okay, around that 100 number. Okay, then we have the warm after X days. Actually, this is quite extra because of course you could be getting this amount of days just by dividing this by this. Okay, so yeah, just divide whatever number you have set up here by this and you're going to be getting the days. Just write the names here. Okay, great. So then it's going to get the phone number list, set the maximum calls per day when warm. So that it's what I was talking about, that this 100 that you see here, it's going to be set actually by the workflow. And then it's just going to check if the phone is still warming. If it's actually still warming, it's going to be warming the phone number a little bit. So it's just going to add the extra daily phone numbers to the counter. Okay, and then if it's already warm or should be considered already warm, we are setting the phone number as warm. Okay, so basically it's going to be changing this warming state to warm. Okay, great. So going back to campaign manager, here we are just making sure that only one item passes through there. Then we're going to be getting the leads, aggregate all the leads, get the available phone numbers, compute the maximum calls today, reset today's phone calls counter just to make sure that these phone calls today counter is at 0. Okay, because remember, this campaign manager workflow, it's going to be triggered every day at 9 a.m. Okay, great. So now we have this switch that is going basically to route to one path or another based on the constraint. Okay, so if we have set up a constraint in here in max leads per day that it's lower than the compute max calls today that have been computed here, it's going to be going through this route. Or if the compute max calls today is the constraint, it's going to go in this direction. Okay, it's exactly the same, but yeah. So we are just going to be reviewing this first. Okay, so here we are just saving the today's amount of calls and the different data. Okay, then we are splitting out all the calls information and so on, and then we are just checking that the next call actually is this column here. Then if it's actually empty, we are going to be checking if 100 of the, then if indeed is empty, we're going to be checking that 100% of the items get here. If that is true, it's just going to go directly here and go to the limit node that we're going to be seeing in a couple of minutes. Okay, but if the next field is not empty, meaning that possibly a call that was to be made yesterday or a couple days before has not been answered and has not been marked as answered. That's why we are checking this, was call not answered in previous days. If it is actually not answered, it's going to go to this merge. And if it was actually answered, it's going to filter out leads called previously, and it's going to go to the merge node. Okay, so here in limit, we are just limiting the amount of items by the today's number of calls. Okay, and yeah, that's going to be it for this path, and for this other, because as I've said, is exactly the same. Great, so now we're going to be tagging the leads for today that come from this limit or this limit node. Okay, assign the agent phone number to the lead call. So we are assigning a specific phone number to call a specific lead. Okay, then we're going to be splitting out all the leads, filter out the leads with no agent phone assigned. So imagine that we only have one phone available for the agent to use. It's just going to assign the phone number to the first lead that comes from here, and all other leads are going to be in a waiting state. Okay, waiting for the first call to end and then going to the second lead, the third lead, and so on. But if you have different phone numbers, you can call different leads at a time. Okay, so that's why we are filtering out the leads with no phone number. We are updating the phone numbers in use, basically marking the available phone numbers here is in use to true. Okay, then we are limiting the first batch and doing some verification for the value, and we are running the caller. Okay, we do not have the caller here because this specific node or this way of doing this allows us to have different calls being done simultaneously. Okay, because if we added a loop or we added the caller nodes here, the outbound calls would be done one after another. Okay, so yeah, I hope that it makes sense. It's a quite interesting concept. So here we are just passing the phone number that has to call. As you see, I have added this plus sign. Okay, then the name, call script, the company, and the time zone. This value format verification is just going to make sure that everything is correct so that the caller actually can be receiving this information to use it in a call. Great, so now we are hopping into the caller workflow. It looks simple, and it is, okay, but yeah, in this trigger, we are getting the phone number, the name, the call script, the company, and the time zone that we have passed from the campaign manager node here. And then you'll have to set up the configure me node. Okay, so first for the agent name, go to the LiveKit control panel, select copy the name for the outbound caller, set it up here. Then in LiveKit dashboard API key, you'll have to add the API key for the LiveKit dashboard. In the video where I show you how to self-host the LiveKit server, I show you too how to get the API key and so on. Okay, please be sure to have watched this video. Then for zip trunk ID, just go to the control panel, go to zip trunks and copy the ID. It's basically this number here and paste it here. And then the LiveKit dashboard link, okay? It's basically the link where you have access to the LiveKit dashboard that you have installed, okay? Could be a subdomain, a domain, or even an IP address, okay? If you have installed it without a subdomain and so on. Great, so just pasted it here and you will not have to touch anything, okay? It's just going to make the outbound call based on that you have pasted it here. But yeah, I'm just going to show you how it works. It's going to make a request to this endpoint. By the way, you have access to all the API curls and endpoints here, okay? If you want to integrate it with N8N and use it for other type of workflows and so on, okay? Just go here and you have everything, copy it, and that's it. Then it's going to set the API key that you have set up from there, and then the JSON, it's going to construct JSON with the zip trunk, the zip call to the phone number that we have passed via parameter, the room name, participant identity, participant name, agent name, and then through the metadata, it's going to be passing the name of the callee, the name of the company, and different script nodes that will be used to conduct the call correctly and to make the agent have more odds of closing or, well, not closing, or booking a discovery meeting with the lead, okay? Great, so now go to zip trunking, select the zip trunk, go to configuration, and here in webhooks, we are going to be pasting the URL of this webhook here, okay? I have pinned some data just to test different things, but just go to production URL, copy this URL, and you'll have to paste the URL here, okay? Then just save. Well, actually it's going to be saved automatically. You can already close this. And now I'm just going to be explaining this workflow, okay? So as you can see, it is triggered by a webhook that Telnix is going to be sending our N8N workflow, okay? Just make sure that this is active, okay? Just to prevent any possible problems that you face. And then here in configuration, you just have to set the time zone, okay? Then it's going to be routing based on the event that we received here in webhook. So the event can be call.hangup, call.initiated, or call.answered. There are other types of events, but they don't really matter, okay? So in case that there is a call initiated, meaning that it's ringing, but not answered still, it's going to get the leads with this phone number assigned, update the call status to ringing. So here in leads, we see the call status. So it's just going to be adding ringing here. Then it's going to be getting the agent phone number info and increase the phone number usage, okay? Just here in available phone number is going to be increasing this number by 1. Then in the case that the call is answered, it's going to get the lead with the phone number and update the call status to in process, okay? And in case that the event received through the webhook is call hangup, we are going to be checking whether it is normal clearing, meaning that the hangup occurred after the person or the user that received the call answered, okay? So just like answering the call, hearing the agent for 2 seconds and then hanging up. This is the normal clearing type of event, okay? So as you can see, hang up after answering call. And then user busy, it's the type of hanging up that you can do when you are receiving a call, okay? So before answering the call, you just hang up so that it stops ringing, okay? As you can see, it just seems hang up before answering the call. And depending on whether it's a hang up after responding to the call or answering the call or before, it's going to go to one path or another. It's going to get the leads with the phone number. This is the same for this path. And then it's going to be updating the call status to completed or the call status to no answer, okay? And then it's going to start triggering the next call. So for that, we are going to be getting the phone number info, freeing up the phone, setting the phone to is in use false, then get the next waiting lead, set the phone number to in use, exactly the phone number that we were using for this hang up call, okay, the hang up. And then we're going to do a value format verification, the exact same one that we did in the campaign manager. And then we just run the caller, okay? And this is going to be a loop, as you can imagine, because this run caller, it's going to be running the caller, but whenever a call is answered or hang up and so on, this workflow is going to be triggered, okay? So this is a more abstract loop and not that visual. Yeah, just to remind you, have this auto outbound system available in free self-hostable resources, okay? You have all these downloadables here. And now we're going to make a demo of the system. Just fill up a couple of leads. I have added my real phone number here so that we can test this out. And oh, I completely forgot about that. You'll have to level up your Telnix account to be able to call people that are not yourself, okay? And inside of the verified numbers, you'll have to add the number, okay? It's going to send you an SMS just so that you confirm that you are actually the owner of the phone number. And this way you'll have your phone number verified so that you can call the agent from your phone number, or that the agent is going to be able to call you, okay? So in able to overcome this limitation, you'll have to upgrade, okay? It's going to ask you for other information of your business, okay? So just make sure to fill all of it. Great, so hope that this has been useful. I'll be doing a lead generation workflow and also another middle step that it's going to be between the lead generation and the outbound calling, just to make sure that we are complying with the legality and so on. Because I have not said that, I completely forgot about, but cold calling people without their permission is not allowed, okay? It's completely illegal. You have to get their permission to call them, okay? So based on that idea, I'm working on a concept to automate these outbound calls inside of Law, okay? So yeah, that's going to be a video for another week, possibly next week or in a couple of weeks. And yeah, remember that everything is inside of my school community, everything that we have seen today, and see you in the next video.